Where's the
Um,
hospital?
Me and Popsy routine.
Check.
Check.
Oh, okay.
You know how old people are.
Actually, I'm always wearing dark colors. People will think that I don't have joy. Let me wear light colors today. This is my idea of light color. I think I'm better than somebody. Somebody always wear dark something. Good morning, Lagos. This is Aishah Adams, and I am at Smooth FM for the third part of the discussion about my book, Rise Irrespective. Okay, then. Thank you guys for joining. What's happening?
Hmm?
What's happening? Are we not talking?
After this breaker. Mm. All right, this is Smooth 98.1. We love music and we love life. On a hump of the week, Wednesday morning. Ayokunmi right here with you on the Smooth Breakfast, taking you into your workday on the smoothest note possible. Oh, yes. I know it's been a great Wednesday for you. It has been for me, having so much fun being in the studio, playing you great music, and of course, getting into the world of conversation. And that is what we're going to be doing right now on a Lagos Talk. So we get to have discussions about anything and everything. We bring issues to the fore and we just feel each other's pulses basically and learn from each other. Learning is something that we are very big on, and that is what we are all about today. Welcome along on the journey. You can join us on WhatsApp to share your thoughts on 0809 440 981. You can also give us a call on the studio line if you so please on 0201 4489 981 0201 4489 981. You can also find us on YouTube or streaming live at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. We love to hear from you. Okay, so this morning we're going to continue on the trajectory of a conversation we've been having for the last 2 weeks. It's the third part of our series, the Rising Strong series, Birthing Purpose from Pain. Today, we're going to be looking at owning your story, the power of vulnerability and authenticity, the power to be vulnerable and the power to be authentic as well. And this is still taking a look at the absolutely amazing novel written by Aishah Adams, Rise Irrespective. It discusses how being open about our struggles and embracing our vulnerabilities allows us to connect more deeply with ourselves and with others as well. And the thing is, when we talk about vulnerability, it's often seen as a weakness, but Aisha argues that it is actually a source of great strength. And in my sojourn throughout the book, I just want to take an excerpt here from chapter 7 where it says, vulnerability is not the enemy. It's the key to unlocking your true self, embracing your pain, and stepping into your purpose. And in today's conversation, we'll explore how vulnerability helps us to own our story and to find the strength to rise. And of course, joining me once again to continue on this amazing, very insightful conversation is the one and the only Aishah Adams. Good morning, Aisha. Welcome back
Hi, good morning.
to Lagos
Thank you
Talks.
so much. Thank
Absolute
you.
pleasure having you. So, today it's all about owning your story,
Yeah.
being vulnerable, being authentic. Now,
Yes.
you challenge the notion that vulnerability is a weakness. You also emphasize that embracing vulnerability is essential to unlocking personal power. Now, you said you will only rise when you fully own every part of your story, including the messy and the painful parts as well. That is something a lot of people do not like to do, in all honesty. Now, why do you believe vulnerability is such a powerful tool for personal growth?
Um, I think, as always, I like to start from the definition. What is vulnerability? I think vulnerability is basically our ability to, be bare, to feel our emotions, our ability to take ownership of who we are in all our glory and our mess. And so, when you think about it from that perspective, you would realize that vulnerability is a strength because nobody is always put together. But in our bid to appear perfect, I don't like God, that word. I need to find out who came up with the notion that humans have to be perfect, because I feel like that is one of the major challenges that we face as humans. We try
Right.
to live up to this perfection myth that
Mm-hmm.
is,
This
non-existent.
image that is
This,
painted.
yes, that you have to be perfect. This has to be perfect. And I feel like because people constantly try to be perfect, it takes away from the soulfulness of them living. And so vulnerability is a strength because when you think about love, when you think about empathy, when you think about creativity, none of those things can exist without vulnerability, right?
Right, right,
Because
right,
love requires of you that you are open, you are there to the person that you love, right? You give them the permission to go to places, to parts of you that you probably would not have exposed yourself to. Um, Empathy requires that you can feel the pain of other people. You're not a robot. Creativity requires, think about it, you create something, whatever it is that you create, a painting, an artwork, whatever it is you create, and then you have to put it out there for criticism. If you're not open to vulnerability, you're not open-minded enough, you're going to struggle. Yeah, because someone sees the painting and doesn't understand it and critiques it. You would struggle if you're not open to vulnerability. So
right.
vulnerability really is the heart of our living authentically. It's at the heart of our being able to have deep connections and beautiful relationships. And if we really want to thrive in the life of this world, then we must be open to being vulnerable.
Hmm. Very interesting thoughts there. Now, let's transition from that to the power of, of authenticity in healing. I will not bite my tongue this morning. Now, authenticity is about showing up as your true self,
Yes.
being real, flaws and all, everything, the whole package, the whole bundle rolled up into one. Now, you stress that healing begins when we begin to stop hiding parts of ourselves. And I'm quoting here, to heal, you must first be real. I need to write that down. So, a bumper sticker. And authenticity unlocks the door to freedom. Now, you talk about that as the key to healing. Now, how can someone actually begin to live more authentically in their daily life? Because you know what they say, fake life.
Fake it
It's
till you make
all
it.
fake it till you make it. It's all over.
Okay, so steps to embracing authenticity in no particular order. I think the first thing is that you need to know who you want to be. Who are you? When I say who are you vis-a-vis the values that you hold dear to you? Who are you vis-a-vis how you want to show up in the world? You need to be clear on who you want to be. Who are you? How do you want to show up in the world? How do you want to be received? And then you need to go on a self-awareness journey. One of the hardest questions to answer in my experience is, who are you? When you ask that question, people go on, oh, they start to tell you what they do, they start to tell you what they're about. Like the question, who are you, at your core, and I don't want to put you on hot seat, but normally if this was like I would have asked that question because I threw out that question and I find that it's something that people struggle with. Yeah, people struggle with that, taking ownership of their identity. So if you are looking to become authentic, start there. Get to know yourself, get to understand yourself, get to understand what your idiosyncrasies are. And I feel like, you start to. And then another thing is that you need to be open minded. Because a lot of the time we think that, things are either black or white. we follow a particular pathway or construct
Mm.
in how we see things, and that doesn't give you the permission to remember. Vulnerability embraces feedback.
Right,
And
right.
so when you're close-minded, the chances that you would embrace feedback is really slim. And so if you want to become authentic, then you have to be open to feedbacks, because feedbacks helps you to position yourself better, to embrace yourself better. Sometimes you think you're being authentic. I give you an example. A person, look at the way I'm talking now. I'm talking this way, and then probably someone enters into the room, and I'm trying to impress the person. Then I start to, speak a kind of English that I don't speak normally.
Rolling your tongue here
Like,
and there and all that. Yeah, we know, we
and
know.
then the question is like, why? How long are you going to keep up with that image? Because then you now have to start living like double life. Yeah, you're trying to maintain this and trying to maintain that. It's a lot of stress on you, considering the amount of problem in the world. Like, you don't need that extra level of stress. So if you're trying to build authenticity, you're trying to embrace authenticity, I would say that you should be open to feedbacks, and you should be open to being yourself in every gathering that you're in. Another thing that comes readily to mind when I think about authenticity is reflection. I feel like self-reflection plays a very vital role in that journey to yourself, because even when you become aware, from time to time, do you do a check-in with yourself? How did today go? What were the times? What were those moments where I lived authentically? What were those moments where I was someone else? Was that really me, or was that me trying to, people please?
Mm.
Just checking yourself, checking in with your thoughts, checking in with your actions, and being the self-critic, like
Okay,
looking at
okay.
yourself and saying, okay, how can I be better? I have looked at what I have done, because a lot of the time we are too worried, we are too busy trying to not be bored, and so we don't even take that time out to just sit by ourselves and just reflect and say, how can I be better? What have I done? What are those things? I think another thing would be, and I think this will be last on this particular question. Not last because there are other ways you can be authentic, but last because of the limited time we have on the show. But another thing I think you can try to do is that from time to time do like SWOT analysis, because
What is that?
okay, so a SWOT analysis is basically checking your strengths, your weaknesses, threats, opportunities, like for yourself. Who are, because
Okay, okay,
it
okay.
ties in with self awareness, but it's a bit deeper, because it gives you that opportunity to understand what your weaknesses are and what you need to improve in those areas. um Sometimes we do a self-awareness is not like a one-time thing. It's not like, oh, I'm aware of myself now, and because we change with
It's an ongoing
seasons. Yes,
process.
it's a continuous process. I say it's not a destination, like it's a continuous journey. So it's like you reckon that, okay, I think that I observed something about myself in this space. What's going on? Doing being emotionally intelligent, being emotionally aware is also a
Right.
way that you can become more authentic, because a lot of the time one of the things that limits us is that ability to express our emotions. We don't want to be seen a certain way,
Mm,
so we are like,
mm.
what, let me just be this way so that I can be accepted. How long are you going to continue to be that person? So I feel like those are a couple of things you can do if you're trying to kickstart your authenticity journey.
Okay, interesting thoughts that we actually need to take a break right now. But I also need to ask this in about 10 seconds because it just came to me and I mean, I have you here, so take advantage of that. Now, for someone who lives that sort of fake life in quotes that has done that for a very long time, is it possible for that person to get lost in that life and actually lose the essence of who they truly are? Is that
Yes,
possible?
very. It's easy. After a while, habits are formed over a period of time. You repeat something for a couple of days, it becomes something that you find yourself struggling to let go of.
Okay.
And a lot of these things are even done unconsciously. You just see something and you find yourself doing it. And then repetition, because that's how the mind learns, through repetition. So the moment you're repeating that action or repeating that habit, before you know it, you find yourself like, ah, what's going on? How come I'm doing this? I didn't used to do this before. And then you find that it's something you now have to start working to ditch. So I think the best thing is not to even engage in anything that you're going to have to start figuring out how to unlearn.
Interesting thoughts there. Let's take this quick break. When we come back in, we're going to bring the conversation back to vulnerability. Now, this one is a biggie because we know how we look at vulnerability in an African and in a Nigerian setting as well. We'll come back and Aisha will give us her thoughts on that one. This is Lagos Talks. This is Smooth 98.1. sip some champagne.
I think I stepped on something.
Yeah.
I perceive.
No, my nose is.
No, well,
So I'm not 100% sure of what I'm smelling right now.
we're talking about my book around the theme owning your story.
Oh, oh, oh my goodness.
Like that authenticity is a thing I feel like we need to become.
Fake life.
What
Fake
is
life. Fake life. Fake is you make it.
fake life is everywhere.
In this Nigeria.
Yes, packaging. They call it packaging.
Yeah, you have to package. It's like default setting. You're welcome back into Lagos Talks on a Wednesday morning. This is Smooth 98.1, your love music, love life station. Ayokunmi right here with you, having a great conversation as we always do. You know how we do 9 o'clock on the weekdays. Week mornings, we get to talk and have these very insightful discussions about a lot of different things we learn. And of course, we get different perspectives as well. It is extremely key to do that. Welcome into the show. If you're just tuning in, you have coming at the perfect time. You can join us on WhatsApp on 0809 440 981. 0809 440 981. The studio line to give us a call on is 0201 4489981. Today we're continuing on our Rising Strong series. This is the third part of the conversation, and today we're looking at owning your story, the power of vulnerability and authenticity. And we're taking all this knowledge out of the book written by Aishah Adams. She is an executive coach, she's a therapist, she's an author. She is one who wears many different hats, and she's here with us to continue on the conversation. So we're looking for you to also join in the conversation and share your own stories centered around this. Are you truly authentic? Look at yourself in the mirror. If you don't have a mirror, just look at your phone. It's reflective. Have you been authentic anytime recently? Do you do that fake life thing where you feel you need to quote unquote package? Do you feel that being vulnerable is something that you would not subscribe to because, hey, vulnerability means weakness? Let us know your thoughts and, of course, your experiences as well. So, Aisha, talking about vulnerability, I said we're going to come back in and talk about that. Now, in many cultures, especially in African communities and Nigeria, because we're Nigerians, in Nigeria, vulnerability is discouraged. We're often taught to hide our pain, but this only keeps us from healing.
Yeah.
These are your words in chapter 9. So, how do we begin to shift this mindset, especially in our communities, knowing what it is that we know and knowing the consequences of showing those sort of emotions and or feelings?
I don't even know how to start. I think when there was something you said earlier. I was like, you're looking for trouble. You asked the audience to share their thoughts on whether vulnerability was something they thought was was okay, and I'm like, what do you expect the average Nigerian to do? You see, I feel like the problem of um detachment from vulnerability started really from how we were raised. We were raised to suck it up, yeah.
Mm.
But have you been able to divorce yourself from emotions? Have you?
No.
I don't know anyone who has been able to. So what does that tell us? It tells us that the ability to not embrace our vulnerability, our authenticity, ourselves as humans that we are, people who have a pack of oscillating emotions, is what is killing us, right? You're going through a painful experience, for example, and
Mm.
someone comes in and says, "Oh, don't cry." That thing just amazes me. I'm just like someone just lost her husband, or a guy just lost his mom, and you're like, "You're a man. you should. What does that even mean? Does that mean he's not human? You're a man. What does that mean? Oh, you're a mother. You should, like, let people grieve. Let people feel. Let people work through the emotions. And it is, I think that it has become really important that emotional intelligence must be taught in schools from the primary level. Perhaps then we will start to help people understand that being vulnerable is not a bad thing.
Mm.
See, vulnerability really is courage. It is the courage to take ownership of what you're feeling, acknowledge it, and work through it, and not spill it over other people. So think about what we do here. We spill our emotions everywhere. People play victim. Someone just, did something or drove terribly. Think about driving on Nigerian roads.
Right.
And I see that you have a smile on your face. A lot of those things, road rages and stuff, what do you think it's where do you think that comes from? It comes from unprocessed emotions. And isn't lack of vulnerability from a place of not acknowledging that we're human? So I feel like we need to see that vulnerability is courage, vulnerability is bravery. It takes guts to go through a pain and you know not package or not pretend. It takes sincerity, a person of integrity, to probably have been through something as traumatic as divorce, to take ownership of it and say, this is who I am, so that when she's or he is trying to remarry, they're not telling a lie to partners. If we were to open the discussion around how vulnerability is affecting relationships, you would agree that a lot of the challenges we have in most of our relationships stem from a lack of taking ownership of vulnerability. And
Mm.
what is vulnerability? It is the ability to open yourself bare and say, this is who I am. Accept yourself. It is the ability to know when you have messed up and say, I am sorry. It is the ability to just take charge of whatever it is. You're good, you're high, you're low. It is the ability to not have skeletons in your cupboard. That phrase.
Ah, yes.
I say everybody has skeletons. Sweetheart, I don't have skeletons. My skeletons are really in the open. And what that does for you is that it increases your self confidence. It helps you feel better about yourself. You're not constantly looking over your shoulder to say, oh, you know what, what's going to come out? What's going to happen that will make me have to show a part of me that I don't want anybody to see? This is now not a free pass to say, oh, you know what, bear it all in public or concoct lies as we see to try and rid people of their hard-earned money or stuff like that. But this is to say that in those moments when you need help, where you need support, where you need to take ownership of what is going on in your life, that you are brave enough to say the truth about who you are, and you do that from a place of kindness and authenticity yourself.
Okay, it's very interesting that you talked about vulnerability and authenticity, especially in relationships. Now, that brought something to mind. Now, isn't it possible that some people in those situations decide not to be as vulnerable or to be as open or as authentic because there's this fear that the other person will use that information against them, even as it's not in a court of law? But there's always that fear that if I bear it all to this person, or maybe that person has had an experience with someone else and that information was used against them. It tends to happen. I mean,
True.
what would you say to that?
Yeah, I agree that there are those moments, but what is the cost of your lack of being vulnerable? Like I said, this is not to say that what, I just go on the street and I say, this is what is going on in my life. But
Right.
it is to say that in those moments where how do we form connections? Let's go back to the relationship we talked about. How do we form connections, deep connections, meaningful connections? How are you able to say this person is my close friend, or this is my best friend, or this is a person in my corner? Isn't it those people? How did you become close friends with them? Wasn't it by giving yourselves the permission to see yourselves as
Mm,
who you were? If you are in a circle of people where you are not able to see yourself, or you're not able to be yourself, then you are in the wrong circle. I usually say this to people. And so, because if you are in a circle of people that are your people, you would let your guard down.
yeah,
You
you'll
would,
be free with them.
yes, you would have. And what does that be free with them? What does that mean? Isn't that vulnerability?
That is true.
So, what it means is that, so when we talk about vulnerability, the reality is that we practice it in pockets, of spaces in our lives, but we struggle to acknowledge it in its totality, especially when it comes to like pain that we have experienced. And that's why I say it prevents you from healing, because um as much as there is the shaming and there is the judging and there is the blame game that happens when you share with certain people, one person is not the sum total of people in the world. So I have a problem when someone says, you know what, men are scum, women are evil. Those general statements in totality are usually lies. Yeah, because nothing is absolute. You cannot. So I was speaking at an event some weeks ago, and we were talking about, I can't remember what it was, but I know someone came up and said, you know um a lot of people are evil. And I asked, when you say a lot of people, tell me how many people you've met, how many countries you've traveled to, how many states in Nigeria you have been. Let's just put context to it. So you had 10 people who hurt you, you had 50 people who hurt you. 50 people, how many people are in the world?
There are billions.
Do you understand? So you cannot judge the rest of the world by the sum total of a few people who put you through a certain thing. And you cannot start to hide yourself. And I say this, if you're listening and you've gone through pain, or you've gone through heartbreaks and stuff like that, and you've closed yourself off, the question is that, is it really serving you? Closing yourself off, is it serving you? Because it would not serve you. There's one of the vital needs of human is the need for connection. And the way that connection is, nurtured is through vulnerability. Deep connections, meaningful connections are nurtured through vulnerability. So when you close yourself off of feeling because some people have done certain things, or because of the fear of it, life is risk. Every day we step out of our house, we're scared. There is no guarantee that I'm going to get back home alive. But then I'm hopeful. So I step out every day hoping. The people that died on the road before I got here, they didn't think that they were going to die before they got home today. But that's their
Right,
reality.
right.
So the truth is that life is risk. And to prevent yourself from leaving because you would hurt is to prevent yourself from experiencing the beauty. There's an adage in Yoruba, it says that, if you close your eyes because someone has hurt you and you don't see bad people, you wouldn't know when a good person will pass by as well. So to say that you were
That is
hurt,
very true. That is very
to say
true.
that because you were hurt is the reason why everybody else is calm, or is the reason why everybody else is bad, is not is not giving yourself the permission to live again. To live is to hurt. Life is ebb and flow. I like to always remind people of that. Life is ebb and flow, and the ebbs will come, and sometimes it will come in, it will come in relationships. It will come through painful experiences. Sharing a pain with someone, hoping that they are there for you. They use that pain. I have chopped all of that, but every day I make a conscious decision to say, this is not going to stop me from experiencing life in its full. You see, they call today is what we say, what present. It's a gift. The now is a gift for you. There is no guarantee of the next minute. So how do you spend your time? How do you make the best of it? How do you enjoy the time when you keep using the past as a limitation for you to be present in the now that you have as a gift to you? So the now is an opportunity for you to live better, to be better, to show up better for yourself. And you will not be able to do so if you keep allowing what people have done to be your yardstick for relating with other people. Take the lessons from what people did, but ensure that, in taking the lessons, you do not use their yardstick to judge the rest of the world.
All right, very well said. I actually have a question I want to ask you on
Okay,
that one,
okay.
but I need to keep it in my right hand. When we come back in from this break, I'll bring that up, and then we'll continue on the conversation and get ready to land this plane, as I love to say, on Lagos Talks this Wednesday morning on Smooth 98.1. Hmm. That prov
Um,
that proverb was very deep,
yeah, it's the truth now.
deep, 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 deep. I felt it.
I think I saw a message.
So
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm on social media.
we are on two lives.
Now enjoy the Emirates experience in economy class from Lagos with daily flights to Dubai and beyond. Start your holiday on board with complimentary food and drink. Choose from over 6,500 channels of entertainment and keep boredom at bay with special meals and toys for kids. You get so much more.
It's so easy to close yourself off,
Book your next
you know.
getaway
when life happens. It's the easiest thing. We go in, but the people that actually thrive are not those who hide themselves. Because this vulnerability game, when I started it, I was like, am I really sure? But what I found was that it made me become more confident. When people know that you have a pain, think about it. And it wasn't something I thought about when I was in secondary school. You know, secondary school life, those girls that were evil to other people, what did they used to do? They used to bring out some pain. Think about if you watch high school movies. They'll go and bring something that is a painful thing and bring it and announce it to everybody. Isn't that what they
To
did?
shame her and all
To
that.
shame, blame, judge. So what if you take your own? And the problem is that most times people listen to the first narrative.
Mm.
So what if you write your own narrative of the story? Do you understand?
Mm. Mm.
Because someone asks you about who you are, you pretend, you dodge. Then at the end of the day, someone else comes and tells them what isn't even true about your narrative.
All right, welcome back into Lagos Talks. This is Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. On the Smooth Breakfast, Ayokunmi right here with me is Aishah Adams. We are taking a look at Rise Irrespective. It is a book written by her. It is a very powerful one, I need to add. And today we have been talking about owning your story and, of course, embracing vulnerability as a strength. Being authentic is the key word. And you can still get across those by sending your thoughts in on WhatsApp on 0809 444 If you'd love to talk to us and share your thoughts, you can do that on the studio line, which is 0201 4489981. There is a comment on YouTube from Folashadi Badmos, and it says, to be very honest, our society really frowns on vulnerability. It is sad. True story right there. That's why we're unpacking it all this morning. Thank you for sharing your thoughts there, Folashadi. Much appreciated. Now, the question I was going to ask now, for someone, I want you to say to someone who has been through a lot of trauma, maybe in a relationship and all that, and is at a point where they don't feel like they deserve any of the good stuff, or they've conditioned their mind to look at the negatives in terms of, oh, if this one doesn't work out, I mean, I'm already mentally prepared and it's all good. Now, in that instance, would it be a case of them not giving their all into maybe that new relationship on one hand, and on the other hand, how exactly can they get themselves out of that mindset of, oh, because I've been through so much in this one, I maybe just look at the possibilities of this one not working out and just go with it and see, and then when it now doesn't work out, I'm vindicated. What would you say to that person?
I would take the person on my journey. So I'm here talking about vulnerability. I should be able to be vulnerable a bit. You know, when you were talking, it was almost as if you were talking about me. Like I don't like what you're doing. You brought my matter on the air. It's
I
not good like
I
that. It's not good like
if
that.
I'm talking to you, I'll talk to you directly, not through the
No, it's
corners.
corner you did just now because I don't understand. You just painted scenario of my life and then you are now asking me why. It's not good. It's not good. And there were a couple of things that came to mind as you were talking. The first thing that jumped into my mind is get therapy. And I'm not saying this because I'm a therapist. I'm saying this because therapy breaks that cycle. The way therapy breaks it is I want you to imagine a cup of dirty water. Yeah?
Okay.
That cup of dirty water, I'm talking brown water. How
Mm.
do you purify it? You pour into it, you pour some water, clean water, you keep pouring. After a while, what happens? The dirt leaves,
Mm.
the water becomes more purified.
Right.
And so that's the analogy I use for therapy. That's what therapy does. It's like, and then I use another analogy of when we have a sore on your hand. What happens is that you tend to it. If you do not tend to it, what happens? It gets worse. It
Right.
becomes infected. It's it goes terrible. But if you give yourself the grace of, kindness by, tending to it, going through the pain, after a while it subsides. You see, the most painful part of the journey to embracing vulnerability is the beginning. And it reminds me of how I started. I am a very private person, and it's interesting that I'm doing the work I do now. I'm actually a very private person, and I remembered when I was having a lot of issues that it was already borderline. It was eating at my self-esteem, because that's what trauma does. Trauma eats at your self-esteem. It makes you start to feel like you're not good enough, like you just said. It makes you
Mm.
feel like, you know what, how can I be making all these wrong choices? Maybe they are not wrong choices. Maybe they are choices that God is leading you to make, because there's a muscle in your body you need to build. Yeah. But at those, painful moments, that's not the first thing on your mind. You're just thinking, why me? Why me? That's the question. And I think we talked about this last week and talked about, when those things happen, you reframe and ask yourself a more powerful question, a more meaningful question, like, what did this come to teach me? But at that time, I was not there. I was at a place where I was doing, why me? Why is all this happening? I've been doing everything right. And then I remembered I was in therapy. And one of the tasks my therapist told me to do, because I saw myself, diminishing before my very eyes. I
Mm.
was beginning to struggle to interact with people in my, if you give me a compliment, I would just brush it off and say, oh no. It's almost like, the good that happens to me was just a mistake. The evil that happened was my own.
A lot of people tend to do that brush it off thing when it comes to
Yes, if you do
compliments.
that, then that's a trauma response. You need to dig deeper and find out why you're doing that. However, so I was doing that. And then she said, you know what, Aisha, I want you to do one of the tasks I had was that she gave me the task to go write about my life on my page. She said, do write your own story. People would write the story they want for you if you do not write your own story. So go write your own story and put it on your social media. The social media you visit the most, and come back and tell me how you feel about it. I promise you, I had my life back afterwards. Because one of the greatest things that challenges that I have faced, and I say I have faced because of how I take family seriously. I have parents that are still very much married, alhamdulillah. And so I am a very family oriented person. And so divorce was not a thing I ever dreamt would happen to me, the number of times that I've experienced it. And I didn't even think about it. How much more then going through that same pain repeatedly. And what writing about my story did for me was that it freed me from cowering, it freed me from pretending to be, someone asked me, well, how is he? And then I'm pretending that there's a he somewhere that's not
Mm-hmm,
non-existent.
mm-hmm.
Oh, I keep lying, because the problem with not being vulnerable is that you tend to become a liar. So someone, because that's what you do. Someone says, oh, how is your husband? You don't have a husband again. Then you're like, he's fine. Then you keep saying he's fine for like 10 years. Oh, how is your wife? Oh, she's doing great. But there's nothing
There's
great
still wife
about it.
there.
And there's nothing even great about the relationship you both have. This is not to say you go on social media and you announce, oh, hi, this is what is happening to me. But this is to say that give yourself the grace of being authentic and being true to what is your journey. Be true to your journey. Because you see, sometimes what we do not realize is that your story is not just for you. And there are a number of people going through the same pain that you are trying to hide and pretend and lie about, who, just by you sharing your story, you inspire them to not give up on themselves. I went for an outreach some years ago and I met a lady who said to me, she was like, I read that, your post on Facebook gave me, it pushed me through the hardest times of my life. And I was in shock. I said, hey. And the the period she talked about were some of the really toughest times in my own life as well. So I'm just writing and, in my own beat sharing, because I was doing a task my therapist asked me to do. But here I
Mm.
was using my story to help somebody else find healing and find closure. Because then they started to realize that, oh no, it's not only me. I'm not the only one in this mess. Sometimes only when we speak up, they say closed mouths don't get fed. Only when you start to
True
speak up
story.
about the challenges that you're going through, would you now find out that, okay, there's someone else who probably have experienced that and even much more, who has tips on how you can navigate that bend. Or someone who is going through something a bit similar, who has something you don't have and you have something they don't have, and you guys can come together and work to move through that challenge together. So and I love what is happening in Nigeria now. I think that the more the conversations around therapy has been coming up, the more we are beginning to have more people creating support spaces. Sometimes in those support spaces, though, I feel like there's still judgment going on, but I feel like at least we have started that journey of helping people come to the realization that, what, you can share your pain in this place. We're going to hold space for you. We should just come to the place where we know that. And the next thing I would say is that you need to forgive yourself. Now, I feel like forgiveness plays a vital role in the journey to embracing vulnerability. And I didn't realize this until, when I gave myself the permission or the grace of forgiveness. I had been doing therapy for a couple of years. And I remember that the day that the change happened, I think I was listening to a lecture, and the damn just, how a trauma response, so you just hear something, and
It just triggers a
it just
reaction.
triggered, and I was just weeping, and I was just crying nonstop that day. And at that moment, I reckoned that, oh my God, I have been angry at myself. Because a lot of the time, what you find is that those pain that you go through, especially if you're someone who is very conscious, who is very careful, and then all of those things are happening to you, you're just like, why is it happening to me? And then you become angry at yourself. The anger you feel is not really at the person that hurt you,
It's
it
like
is at
yourself.
yourself for giving them the permission to hurt you. And giving them, like, especially when it happens repeatedly, then you're like, oh my God. Oh, and then you say things like in your head, you're like, oh, I'm so stupid. I'm so this. You see, which takes me to the third thing, the power of self talk. Self talk is vital in healing, in forgiveness, in growing, in vulnerability. Because the things we say to ourselves is what conditions our mind into certain spaces and into the actions that we take. Your actions are born of your thoughts. Aren't they? I give you an example. Maybe you say, "Oh, you know what? I want to go and drink water." Then you're like, oh, "Okay, no, I don't think I need it again." But then maybe you're flipping through your phone and you find yourself walking in the direction of water. Why? Even though you had changed your mind, because you had already communicated that message to your mind in the first place. And perhaps your maybe I don't need it is more of a maybe, not like I don't need it.
Mm,
And your
mm,
mind
mm.
is aware. And a lot of the time, your unconscious mind is what drives your action. So your unconscious mind has registered iron needs water. So even when you are flipping through your phone, you find yourself going in that direction. I talk about driving. Sometimes you're driving in, like, you're upset, but perhaps what you do when you're upset is that you go and visit a certain person. On that particular day, you don't even plan to visit the person, but next thing you find yourself in front of the person's house and you're wondering how you got there. Doesn't that happen? Now, those are examples of how our self talk drives change. So, self talk, work on your self talk, affirm positive things, and it would help you navigate that bend.
Hmm. All right. Very, very interesting perspectives being shared. There's a message that I got on WhatsApp that says, nice show that okay, I will mention it's anonymous. She's learning a lot from you, Aisha. Some daunting, but it can come with a kind of freedom as well. Glad to know that what we're talking about is resonating. I mean, when you talk to people out there, when you mention what it is that you are dealing with, and they say, "Are you serious? I thought it was only me."
Yeah.
You would be surprised to
Mm-hmm.
actually know. Absolutely fantastic. This conversation we actually are not done with because time has absolutely flown by. There's a bit more to actually dig into. We will have the final part of this series next week. Yes, it is penned in, and at that point in time, what we're going to do is to try to get in the final thoughts on owning your story from today into that session next week, God willing, because we need to see this to a logical conclusion. I mean, I've enjoyed it, and of course, the listeners as well have enjoyed the trajectory that we've taken the conversation in this morning. Absolutely amazing stuff, Aisha. But we need to land this plane and wrap it up uh, this morning. Let me see. I think a message uh, came in here. Okay, in fact, that's very interesting because it's leading me to asking how can all the amazing listeners out there reach out to you, talk to you about these things, talk to you about your book, your books, and just get your thoughts because Nigerians just need to express themselves and get those thoughts going. So, IG, LinkedIn, Facebook,
Yeah,
the
you can
works.
reach out to me on LinkedIn, on Instagram. Okay, on Instagram, AISHAH _Adams. Aisha _Adams. So, but my Aisha has H at the end, so that's how I spelled it. On Facebook, same thing, Aisha Adams, AISHAH. On LinkedIn, Aisha Adams as well. You send me a DM, someone on my team will definitely respond. You could also send an email to me, me@aishaadams.com.
All right, absolutely fantastic. Next week, the fourth part of the series, we're talking about faith, resilience, and the power of continuous growth. I feel 10 feet taller just saying that to myself. But anyways, Aisha Adams, thank you once again. Always, always, always a pleasure having you in the studio.
Oh, thank you.
All right, and to all our amazing listeners out there, Don Kelvin, I hope what Aisha said, answers your question. You can always reach out to her to talk more. It's been a great morning on Lagos Talks. Thank you all so much for being a part of it. Always a pleasure having you join us on the conversation. We'll do this again tomorrow at 9 o'clock on Smooth 98.1. Keep it tuned. There's more great music coming your way on a Hump of the Week Wednesday morning as you get settled in for all the work and all the great things the day has to offer. Uh,
Okay. Thank you guys for joining. I hope you found benefits. You can get the book. We are currently running a discount